know this, Sean, and that is Joe Biden is in violation of federal law that already exists. For one, he is not living up to his duty to deny illegal entry across the border. Instead, he's aiding that illegal entry. The second thing is he's not, once people do cross the border, he is not detaining them as he's required by law. Instead, he's giving mass parole across the country. Because Joe Biden is not enforcing the federal immigration laws, that gives Texas the right, under that Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, to defend ourselves from imminent harm or from an invasion. So Texas has every constitutional right in this case, because they're not just doing that job poorly, but because they have totally abandoned doing that job whatsoever. That is exactly what gives Texas our constitutional right for Texas to be able to act. So by Texas building the barriers that we have, by us taking the action to repel illegal immigration, we're fully authorized because the federal government has ceded or conceded the field of immigration enforcement, and Texas has picked up that duty, and we're the ones in self-enforcement. And let me tell you this amazing number, Sean. If you know where that park is, where Texas now has taken over and we blockaded that park, that is an area where sometimes over the past year, there would be as many as 2 or 3 or more than that 1,000 people coming across the border a day. Yesterday, there were just 6 people crossing the border. All 6 of those people were arrested by Texas law enforcement officers. We have now cracked down and been able to staunch the flow of illegal immigration. Biden should want this replicated across the entire border. That's what Texas is trying to do as we speak.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott is not backing down in the least. If anything, he and his fellow Republican governors, all 27, are ratcheting up their efforts at securing the southern border in an act of collective defiance that is absolutely humiliating the Biden regime. And we're going to find out why it's even worse than the Democrats feared. Biden isn't just losing this battle over the border. In many ways, he's already lost.
A Fox drone capturing truckloads of new fencing arriving in Shelby Park in Eagle Pass. Nearly every day, Texas is fortifying its razor wire barrier on the property while defying the Biden administration's demands to allow Border Patrol agents back in. Texas is no longer allowing migrants to freely cross into the park, where last month up to 4,000 a day were entering.
And so the standoff continues. Again, if anything, it's only exacerbating as Texas forces continue to build up border reinforcements as they block federal officials from having any access to the southern border. Texas Governor Greg Abbott posted video of ongoing border wall construction on his X feed, saying that Texas forces will continue to use every tool and strategy available to defend our southern border and stop the flood of illegal migrants crossing and into their state and our nation. Needless to say, Democrats are flipping out over this blatant defiance of their pathetic incontinent in chief.
Are you serious? They said you can't go in.
But it's fine. No worries.
No, it's not.
Maverick County Democratic Party Chair Juanita Martinez says this scene shows the dysfunction between Texas's governor and the federal government.
I said, safety from what? All this is just a political stunt by Abbott to make people scared. And oh my gosh, why? Because the Republicans don't have anything else to run on.
They don't have anything else to run on. This coming from a political party whose only platform right now is accusing Trump of wanting to be a dictator. Moreover, to make her even more pathetic, let's cede her point. For the sake of argument, let's grant Republicans have nothing else to run on other than illegal immigration. Well, guess what? It just so happens to be the number one concern among voters for 2024. I mean, you literally can't make this kind of cluelessness up. 7 in 10 voters, 70% want the government to crack down and stop illegal immigration. 70%. And according to the latest Harvard-Harris poll, a plurality of voters, 35%, rank illegal immigration as the nation's number one concern, jumping 7 points since last month. And the overwhelming majority blame bumbling Biden for worsening the situation as they ought. I mean, that Democrat, that pathetic Democrat Texas politician that you just heard there is precisely the problem that's facing our nation today. She is a symbol of the corruption and rot that pervades our ruling elite. For example, gang, have you seen the latest report on politicians trading in 2023? They beat the market every single year. Some politicians have hit over 200% in investment returns. I wonder how they do that. Well, guess what, gang? That's exactly what you're going to find out. Click on that link below and learn how you can stick it to the establishment by using their own corruption against them. Thanks to a little-known SEC database, guess what? We can have access to the very same trading secrets that these politicians are privy to. We get to see what stocks corporate CEOs are buying up in real time, and then we get to piggyback on their trades to gain the same advantage for ourselves that Pelosi and the crooks in D.C. have. My friend Ross Givens has been tracking insider trading for years now, and his recommendations have led to investment returns, and guess what? 200%. Some of it as high as nearly 1,500%. And now it's your turn. Click on that link below right now and learn how you too can learn to trade like Pelosi. Click on that link and learn how to gain an insider advantage for yourself today. So as Democrats begin to panic over their growing realization that the chaos at the southern border is literally bleeding them to death politically, there are many in Texas who see the current weakness of the Washington administration as a golden opportunity to actually secede from what they see as a rotten and unreformable federal system. Even Newsweek is admitting that the combination of Biden's border incompetency and the Supreme Court's compliance with that willful incompetency is renewing calls for Texas independence. Calls for a so-called Texit, a referendum on Texas's secession from the United States, are exploding, with a number of media outlets openly recognizing that secessionist sentiments are becoming more and more mainstream among Texans. Others are arguing that Texas and its growing alliance of the 27 other red states across the country is setting the stage for nothing less than another full-blown civil war. But for me, what's even bigger here is how Texas, in challenging the federal government's territorial jurisdiction over the southern border, Texas forces are actually forcing what may be seen as a kind of federal government breakdown or fragmentation. In other words, while everyone's talking about the revival of Texas or the possibility of civil war, instead, I think we have to remember that secession in particular often comes out of something bigger, which is what's called state fragmentation, like what we saw with the Soviet Union when it lost a third of its territories overnight back in December of 1991. In other words, what I think we're seeing here are dynamics indicative of the fact that Texas and the 27 red states that are aligning themselves with Texas, they're not so much seceding, as it were, from the nation, as they are forcing an otherwise tyrannical administration, D.C., to basically fragment. Fragment particularly in relation to the federal government's territorial claims, particularly over the southern border. We need to realize that what's really happening here at the southern border is that Texas is challenging the federal government at the most basic level of political power. Now, everyone needs to get this. The state, the modern state, when all is said and done, it's not merely an administrative authority or a bureaucratic institution. The state, the nation state, is by definition a territorial power. It's the administrative sovereign over a particular space. That's absolutely key to get. The state is by definition a territorial power. It has borders. It has boundaries. It has territorial geographic jurisdictions. And here's the key. Scholars have long recognized that the loss of territorial control, precisely like we're seeing with the federal government losing at the southern border, the loss of territorial control inevitably leads to a radically weakened state, along with an accompanying boldness among other political powers within the nation, like Texas and the 27 red states, to exploit the weakness and consolidate their own political sovereignty and self-determination. So we really are seeing red state America rising up and taking back our country by exploiting the radical weakness of the bumbling Biden administration. Democrats may be panicking that Biden is in the process of losing this. But in point of fact, the reality is much worse. Biden, it appears, has already lost. As many of you know, we have unfortunately been completely and totally demonetized, which is putting our daily communication with one another at risk like never before. Now, we are actively working on getting this resolved, but as things stand, this channel has, without any warning, been totally and completely demonetized. And as Elon Musk said so powerfully last week, the whole point of these demonetization efforts is to deliberately try to make us patriots feel like we're all alone. They want to sever our relationship with each other and force on us a kind of digital solitary confinement so as to demoralize us and discourage us like never before. But to their horror, it's not working. Over this past week, you have carried this channel like never before. We've had more people than ever make the courageous decision to bypass big tech and join our Insiders Club. We have direct access to one another that can never be interrupted by big tech overlords. Over the last 7 days, we've seen literally thousands of you come to our rescue. And you've done it in two ways. You've signed up for our free newsletter and you've officially joined our Insiders Club. Those two acts alone are enough for us to collectively stand together and never, ever have our relationship severed. So I'm inviting the rest of you to do the same today, just by clicking on that link below and signing up for our newsletter and joining our Insiders Club. You are guaranteeing that there is nothing that big tech can do to get between us and make us feel like we're in a digital solitary confinement. It's as simple as clicking on the link below right now and opting into our free email newsletter. And once you do that, you can financially support us by joining our Insiders Club. Gang, from the bottom of my heart, I cannot thank you enough for your support during a time like this. You are my heroes, and it will be my mission to express my appreciation for every single one of you each and every week.